Hello everybody and welcome to this week's video. This week's video is all about using tonal values, and I'll be discussing the importance of tonal value over colour. I'm going to be painting a scene in monochrome. As you can see on my palette, I've got white and black, and I'm mixing various shades of grey. And then what I'll be doing is putting on very unusual colours. So for instance, I might have the sky as purple, maybe the castle will be green. And what this hopefully will demonstrate is that if you have the right tonal values, your picture is going to be dramatic and three-dimensional and stand out no matter what kind of colour you use on it. So to begin, I'm going to be drawing out, and I'm going to use black. There's quite a lot of detail in this. I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'm going to be using fairly big brushes to begin with, and then work with smaller brushes as I go along to put windows and things like that in. So I'm going to be starting with the castle, or actually I'll start with my buildings down here. I'm going to start in the middle, and because this is going to be loose and expressive, I'm not too worried about getting everything exact. So when you're drawing out, usually you look for the big shapes rather than the small shapes, and ignore the details and just get the basics in. So a little house in between there. Very interesting architecture, this. Going to this one over here, and I'm not going to be exact, so if I lose a building off the end, I'm not too worried. Should get my perspective a little bit better. Goes up there like that, and this house goes slightly higher, and then we have two windows there and there. And so now you can see it's all drawn out, and I'm going to be starting to put on my tonal values. If I squint at it, I can see this area is very dark. I really like the sunset, yes, the light there. So I'll be going quite pale there. It's also because it's dusk, there'll be a little bit of colour here, which will be quite interesting. So I'm just going to start with a bigger brush and fill it all in. What I'm working on is acrylic paper, and I've got here, this is a Pro Art filbert. Sorry, not a filbert, this is a flat. And the flat is a really great thing when you're doing buildings because you get all your sharp lines with it. So squinting at this, I can see paler areas within here. This is quite dark, and over here is very dark as well, which is nice because it'll contrast with the sky. So the reason I'm blocking in all my tonal values before I put the colour in is so I can see how three-dimensional it's going to look and what adjustments I need to make. And then when I come to colour, I can think about how dark my colour is going to be, how light, and how to look at the chroma of it, how intense it's going to be. So for instance, where you see the light over here, I might make it more intense in high chroma, and I particularly like the telephone box there, so I might be putting that in a strong colour so that it will stand out. This is a very good exercise if you want to study tonal values and also tonal values in colour. because very often it can be a bit confusing as to how dark and how light to go with a colour. You might think a red may stand out, but it won't stand out if an area near to it has got a higher contrast of tonal values. The tonal values always will dictate more than the colour. That's what I found anyway. Somebody might disagree with me, in which case I'll be interested to hear. So, beginning, I'm going to start quite dark here, and it's quite rough because I'm just blocking in. It goes behind this building here. And I'm not, again, going into detail with my monochrome painting because I'll put the detail in with the colour. So that's actually a house. So that's slightly paler. The whole castle area is quite muted. So in this area, I'm going to go for a mid-grey, actually maybe a bit paler over here. The paint I'm using, because this is only an exercise, is very cheap paint. It's System 3, but it's I think it's the cheapest one they do, and it's fine for what I want it for. That goes very dark up there. And that, I think, goes right behind the houses. It's oh, that's way too dark. So slightly darker in there. Getting quite a lot of texture actually, because I'm not using much water on this paint. So this house here, and I'm going over the windows, is slightly darker than this behind. You don't have to paint this in monochrome. You can just go in with your dark and mid colour and light colours rather than black and white, but I think this is very helpful to do. So this roof is pretty dark. It's darker than the castle. This front here is a little bit darker than the roof and darker than the castle. Oops, sorry, camera. Bit of camera shake there because it's right near my head. So going down here. And it does get pale over here because that's where the light is hitting it. And it's pale over the windows here. I'm going to go over the windows because I'll put them in again. And also this building here is much lighter as well, so I'll just put that in. Where the edges of the windows are, you've got a little bit of light as well that hits it from the street light. It goes quite dark down here. That's probably too dark. So I'm judging and comparing all my tonal values with each other. And I'm thinking about what my darkest value is, which is where the castle is, compared with my lightest one, and all the mid values in between. So I'm trying to judge, for instance, this building as opposed to this building. This is a lot lighter. So it's all the variance in the tonal scale. A bit lighter there. And because I've got my darker values down here and that's pretty much a mid value up there, actually it might be quite a bit lighter, then I judge everything else off these, everything next to them. So that's quite a bit lighter. And the roof is a mid-tone. As is this roof. And that one as well. Oh, I seem to have a little line there, so I'll just fill that in. Like that. So all these three here are a lot lighter. I'm leaving a few black lines in. Well, I don't need to, I can go over those. So just blocking in, it goes darker down here. And that one is lighter in the middle. Darker down here. Actually, that's too dark. Well, actually, that building there is pretty dark, so I'll carry on with that. And it does have a little bit of lighter areas in it. And then at the top, it goes a lot darker. Darkish roof. And then this one here is quite interesting. It's got a lamp, so the light area goes around there. And then it's reasonably dark. Not as dark as the building next to it. But where the light is, it is a lot paler. Put the lamp in. I can save that until I put the colour on top. And it's very light over here. This is a little bit of a focal point with the light. And then it goes reasonably dark over here. You can still see darker windows within this. So I don't want to go too dark. Goes across there. And then this area along here is a lot lighter because it's a different kind of stone. That's probably too pale. Oh, we'll see. And then you've got the shop front. Oh. Sorry, that's the kitten knocking the camera. And I've gone off the page, but these are quite dark at the edge here, so I'm just going to fill that in. Need some more water. And I'm going to make up a house at the end here. Now, the roofs are quite dark as well. In fact, they go very dark just at the front there. Not as dark as behind here. Cover up that window, put that in later. It's quite hard to see what's going on within there. And these are dark as well. So you can see it's starting to become a little bit three-dimensional. The castle itself, or actually I'll carry on with the building. So the The side of this is dark, probably not that dark. I might lighten that as I go. Then you've got quite dark here actually. The front of whatever this is looks like two police boxes together. I'm not really sure what these are. And then the top is pretty light. And then behind the phone box, you've got, interestingly, it's not as light as you'd think. It's very bright red. So I don't think that's that bright behind there. And behind the phone box, it's darker than the phone box. Just put that in, that's the phone box window. Also, this doorway is, apart from the lights, is quite dark. So I'm going to put that in all over with a very dark mid-tone. Fill that in a bit. And this shop is probably actually quite dark as well. It's just there's a few lights in there. It helps to squint. The pavement, nice and pale. And the road is pale as well, just up here. Actually, that's a little bit paler than what I've painted it, that road and pavement. You've got a very nice shadow cast by these box, whatever they are. And also the phone box casts a shadow. So going down to the rest of the road, it's also a little bit darker. You've got quite a few shadows on it, so there's a shadow going across there. If you do end up with a lot of road or fields or anything like that in a painting, it's a good idea to use shadows to fill the area in. Slightly paler here. And it's a bit darker there. Oh, this is paler, but I'll change that when I put the colour on. I quite like this shadow here on the road, and I'll probably exaggerate that a bit. So going back to here, this is quite a dark shop front, so I'll block it in with dark value. And I think that's quite light. Oops, my perspective has gone a bit awry. And then this building is a mid value as well, so I'll just put that in. And then the shop front is pretty dark. Now it's at this point I can look at my tonal values and see how I want to adjust them. For instance, if I want the light to show a little bit more, I can go in darker in here. I'll fill these in a bit. So in a painting, when you have a contrast, a high contrast, which is the lightest light against the darkest dark, that's what will draw the eye. So you have to think of your focal points. And I think probably what I will do is make this area a focal point with contrast. I might go a little bit darker around here. And also there's quite a contrast here with the castle, and that draws the eye up into here. Castle in the sky. And all the chimneys are nice. I like the row of chimneys along there. So I'm just going to put in the sky. That's quite a dark, moody cloud. So I'll put that in. The castle is pretty dark compared with that cloud. But that's the chimneys. So I'll put those in when I put the colour in. This here is reasonably pale compared with the chimneys. Just whiz across the top there. And it's a little bit darker over on this side with a lot of lines. So that cloud is actually a little bit paler than the castle. So I will take some of that dark colour out. Goes over the top here. And up here. Block that window in. And the sky is paler just where you reach the castle. That makes the castle stand out a bit more. And then you've got the very pale area. Just have to get some more white paint. So over here, and I want my colours there to be quite bright, so I'm going to make sure I wash my brush and get a really clean pale colour over there. I'm going to go over those chimneys because I'll put those in afterwards. You can see how weak this paint is because it doesn't even half cover the chimneys. And you've got little bits of cloud that go into there. I won't put those in because I'll put those in with colour. And then the sky above the cloud is quite light. So I'll just block that in. So I'll pay more attention to the sky later on. And then just a little bit of this pavement, which I won't bother painting in detail. And this one. Take it down a few tonal values. So that basically is the whole thing set out in monochrome. And if I look at it, I can change things, adjust things, make things stand out. I think it should be darker in here. Definitely darker down here. And I can make it a little bit darker in there. And down here a little bit. Put in a few lines if I want to. I think this roof around these windows is a lot darker. And I forgot to block out the windows. So that is it for the first stage, and it's tonally quite moody, which is what I wanted. So next is the colour. Now the colours I'm going to be using are these. I've got Viridian, that's a primary purple, I think, cadmium red deep, and ultramarine blue, yellow ochre. I've still got a bit of black and titanium white. The reason I put the black on is to darken these colours because they're quite light. However, I might not need to use that because these are very thin, so the black might show through. So to begin with, I'm going to be thinking about what I'm going to be doing with my sky and my pavement. I'm thinking that the sky, I'm going to make a purple with maybe pink, and the buildings are going to be more greens and blues. So I'm just going to go with that and see how it works. So looking at the paler area here of the sky, I'm going to be mixing the pink, I think. So it's a light medium tone, so I don't want it too pale. And further down it goes into much paler colour, so I'm going to mix a paler pink. I'm also going to use a little bit of maybe the Viridian in there for clouds. However, I'm going to mainly stay with the purple. So the purple is probably dark enough. I think I need to have a lighter one. And I think that will probably do it for the sky. So, and I might use that on the pavement. I'm not sure yet. I might go for blues on the pavements. I want it to harmonise colour-wise. So probably putting the pink at the top and the pink at the bottom will work quite well. So I'll start off with my sky area. I'm going to put that in. That's actually a bit dark. So I'll put some more white into my red. That's a bit better. I'm working quite thickly and just covering it. I can see some of the grey showing through. And I'm going to paint the clouds over the top of this. It goes a little bit paler over here. Blend into there a bit. And round here is paler. It's probably too pale. I'll put a little bit of it in there. Going over here. And it's quite pale here as well. And I'm going to go right up to my castle because I can always paint the castle over it. And then down here, actually it does change colour, but I still like the pink, so I'm going to take some of that pink down there. A lot lighter, I think. And then I'm going to go into, I think, yellow ochre maybe. Although that is yellow, so I'm actually not going to do it yellow. I'm going to do it a different colour. I'm going to take the Viridian, as you can see, and I'm going to put white in that, and that's going to be very pale. I could actually put a little bit of purple in. I think that's quite nice. So here we go. I think pale, more pale than that. And there's a little bit of a purple in there with the cloud. And I think that green is still very dark, so I'm going to go in much paler here with the paler green and go into the pink. Do a bit of blending. I can take some of that pink down here for harmony, and then I'm going to go very pale behind the buildings. You could also have a look at your warm and cool colours, because obviously in here you've got some very warm colours and you've got the very cool colours with the greys and the blues. So you could even do it that way. I'm not going to worry about the warmth of the colours. A little bit of pink within this cloud and behind castle here. Cover up the chimneys. Okay, so I'm going to go in with my very dark purple cloud up there. I'm pushing it on quite thick, and which means I can blend a little bit because it's staying wet for longer. The clouds actually go off into the pink a bit more. It's very dark up here actually, and then a little bit more pale over here. The purple and the pink work quite nicely mixed together. And as you can see, it's looking quite dramatic. Put a little bit in here. Now at this point, because I'm trying to blend a bit, I could do with a round brush. But I'll carry on with the flat. And I'm using the corner of it. I think actually that area there should be a little bit paler. So going into my pale pink, I'm going to go over that and just put it in a little bit lighter. And with the corner of my brush, push a little bit of cloud into that. And darker in here. Some more pale pink under here. And it is a lot paler over here. So this cloud here is very dark. So I'm using my purple straight from the tube. Blending a bit with the pink. So I'll just put it on thicker. So you can see what's happening over here. We've got quite a contrast going on between the pale pink and the dark cloud. So you've got a little bit of a dark cloud going on there as well. Not very dark though. And I'll just blend that in a bit. Oh, I picked up a bit of green. That's okay. Makes it more interesting. And I really, really need a round brush. So I've got a small round brush here. Well, it's a flat, but it behaves like a round. So I will be going over that area there because it's still a little bit pale, but I'll wait for it to dry first. So I'm happy with that, and I think what I'll do is also paint the pavement in similar colours. So again, we're going to have a dark purple going across here. And over here as well, because it's a bit darker there. Oops, went over my mid-tone. So I'm going to go in with the pink. It's quite pale in here. And then maybe a little bit of the purple here because it goes a bit darker. and a bit of this purple going across here, and then I'm going to put pink in here. It's a little bit darker here, so the pink's going to be darker. And it's quite a bit lighter in this bit, so I'll use the paler pink. And I'm trying to put on the paint quite thickly because then it'll cover up the underpainting. So it goes quite pale over here. Going again with the purple over here. And I can put a few details in like that. Happy with that, and I'm going to go in with the pale green for the pavements. With dark green for the shadows. And where you see the curb, which is quite dark, I'm going to use, I think, a dark Viridian. I could mix it with a bit of the purple to go even darker, because that's very black on the photo. Likewise over here in the foreground, I'm going to use the same green. And over here. I think that's too pale actually, so I'll tone that down a bit. And again, using the purple and the green mixed together, I'm going to put in a dark curb. There's a little bit of a double yellow line there, so I'm going to put that in. Oops, that's way too pale. Oh, sorry. There's a double yellow line over here, so I'm going to put that in a paler colour. So that will do for the pavement for now. Oh, sorry, no, missed out on the other curb on the other side. There, like that. And I've just missed also that little bit over here. Take that behind there. So going back to my clouds, I'm going to put some more purple over because I think they've dried quite a bit, to make it darker. So I'm not particularly painting carefully because this is an exercise in tonal value rather than a painting exercise in technique. A bit more over here. there's a bit of a cloud here as well, like that. So now, moving on to the castle, I will just cover those up there, the chimneys, because I'll be painting over those. I think that works tonally so far, maybe a bit paler on here. And now I'm going to move on to the castle. Now the castle, I think I will do maybe blue. So I've got my ultramarine, but that's a bit, well, we are doing wild colours, so I might make it actually ultramarine. So down this side, it's darker. So I'll just put that in. And it's, my ultramarine is not dark enough, so I'm going to add a little bit of black to darken it down. It will turn it a little bit dirty, I think. That's not too bad. Going up there, and then it gets a bit paler over here. This might be too dark, but I can always go over it. So I'm going to mix a paler ultramarine. And go over this side of the castle. Actually, that's quite a good tonal value. That looks about right. I'll go over this door here, and I'll just leave a little bit of the underpainting there so I can remember where it is. And tonally, that goes about the same there. Up here. Much darker over there. Now just where the roof is, it's a lot darker, so I'll use my dark blue, and there's a bit of a roof here, so I'll just put that in. And it goes over here as well. I've still got bits of white showing through, so I'll cover those up. I think I might end up doing the side of the building a little bit lighter. And the very top with all the turrets, that's a lot darker, but I'm going to leave that for now and carry on with this area here. So taking my ultramarine and a bit of white. I'm using very basic mixes, mainly white with the colour straight from the tube. You might want to be a bit more subtle with your colours. You could go for pastels, or you could go just for warm colours, reds, oranges, yellows. You could go very high chroma, so really loud colours, or you could even go with luminous colours. System 3 do a lot of luminous, vibrant colours. You could go in with gold, silver. That's actually quite pale just here. So I'm going to go a bit paler. So as you can see, I'm just blocking in shapes at the moment, and you can see how much the castle comes forward. I'm going to go in with a bit of a dark blue and put a little bit of a bit more detail in this. And I've got a few white spaces I need to cover up. It goes there. And also I think I need to go in with a bit of paler blue. that's too pale to go over that. Although, actually, no, I don't think it is. There are pale areas in between the sides of it, of the castle. So happy with that. I think that it should be a wee bit paler here. And slightly darker just in here. Just pull that down for a little bit of the texture. Let's hide that white area. It's very dark just here actually, so I'll just put that in. And I think for this area here I might go in with the green. Maybe. I'm going to think about that because I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with that. I could go in with the red and go in with a very dark colour, mix it with black. I might try that and see what we get. So I'm mixing the red in with the black. It's actually very dark in there, so I'm going to put a lot of black into this red. There's a bit of texture as well. And so on my brush, I'm not entirely mixed with the colours. That doesn't go like that. It goes a little bit different there. So I'm getting bits of the paler red as well as very dark. It's not entirely correct, but never mind. So onto the buildings, and as I said, I was thinking of using green on the buildings. I kind of like the red. I might make the buildings red and green together, and that will really bring them forward because the colours will work with each other. So I'm going to go for, this is going to be actually pink. So I'm just checking my buildings, right? That building is that one. That's actually relatively pale. So I'm going to put that building in. And then going further down, it's a little bit darker. The one next door is part of the same building actually, so I'll just pull that over. And a little bit paler in here. I'm going to make this one green, I think. So it's relatively pale. So I'll mix my green with my white. I might even put a little bit of blue in actually and have it slightly turquoise. That will be interesting. So going into there, I think that's probably a bit too dark. So you do have to consider your tonal values all the time when you're doing this. Down there. And then it gets very, very pale around where the lamp is. So I'm just going to put a pale green in. Although actually the colour does change. So I'm thinking maybe of going in with a different colour. I think I'll put purple in. But it's going to be a very pale purple. And I'll blend the turquoise in a little bit with that. And below that, yeah, it's the same thing. There's a lot of pale area because of the lighting. It's probably too dark. Go over it. And then it gets darker on the other side. So going on to the next one, again, you've got that paler area, so that's going to be pale purple. And that goes right across this area here. That's still too dark. And up the top there as well. And I think that building I will make blue. And it's reasonably dark. I'm not putting detail, as you can see. I could save the detail for later. And then just around there, like so. And down to here. And just a little bit of blending. Like that. So this building is slightly paler, and I could go in with the red again. It's actually more pale than this one. So I'll pink it up and put that in. The building behind is very similar, but I want to have a variety of colours going on. So I'm going to go in with that turquoise because it looks really nice. That's probably too pale actually. This building is darker than this, so I'll go for a darker turquoise. And I think the roof is a lot darker, so I think what I'm going to do is use a dark purple on that. The dark purple I'm finding that I'm using to do all the darker tones. I suppose it's because it's one of the darker colours on the palette. And I'll put it in here. And the windows are a little bit lighter, so I might go in with the turquoise for those. And the window inside I'm going to put as a dark green. I've actually got quite a limited palette here. I'm thinking about introducing my yellow ochre. Yellow ochre's, because it's opaque, it's got a lot of white in it. I don't know if I'm going to get it very dark. You know what, I might not use it. I think I'll carry on with the colours I've got. Yeah. So on to the next building. It's quite dark, and I think I might do that as a dark green. So going in very dark in there. And you've got two dark bits of the windows in there, so I'll put those in while I'm at it. This is pretty dark down here actually, so I'm going to go in with a very dark green. So checking my tonal values, I think actually that is pretty dark compared with the rest of them, but I'm going to leave it in because it makes an interesting change in tonal value. So this building here I'm going to have a lot lighter, and again I think I'll use the blue. And you've got the lamplight again, so that's going to be pale purple again. So I'm just going to put pale purple in there. And this is a lot lighter, so I'll go in with that purple all the way along there. And my mid green, I think, in here. Sorry, mid blue. Try and cover up the white. What would have been an idea would have been to do a ground colour, I think, maybe of. Now that's got quite a lot of roof. I'm going to do the roof in a dark purple. And I'm ignoring the shop fronts at the moment. So on to the next building. I think I'll do that roof in green. There is a bit of a paler area on it, so I'll put in some white. And then try and neaten it up a little bit. Goes very dark down the side there. So I'll just put a dark green over that. Yep. And so the front of this is relatively dark at the top. I could go again with a green. I think I'll put a red. So I've got red there, red, red, and a red, or rather pink. So that again, I have to remember the lamplight. Relatively dark, so it's going to be a stronger red, and just go over it. And at the very bottom, that's the shop, so I won't worry about that at the moment. So I think that's near enough it. This one can be a dark purple. I'm not going to bother painting that too much. It's on the edge. So I'll just probably leave that as a suggestion. It's interesting to see how with the colours on, some of the buildings come forward and some go back, which is what I wanted. But it's because of the tonal values. So with the shops, I'm going to, again, take a dark colour. There's a dark door there, so that's a dark red. You can't see much red in there, actually. And then the window can be a green, dark green. And then you have paler areas. So I'm going to use a pale purple to put in this canopy. And there's a pale wall, so I'll put that in with the purple. And then there's a little bit of a darker colour where the door frame is, so I can put those in. A little bit darker than that purple. And there's a window with lots of different bits and pieces in, so using the corner of my brush, I'm just going to suggest. And I'm going to neaten up the bottom with a bit of pink of the pavement. There's some bright green lights in there. I'm going to put red, quite pale. So I'm going to have to make this pink because it's not pale enough with red. Now the windows above, I'm going to go in with pink again. So pale pink for the frames where the light's hitting. And along the bottom. And then the actual windows themselves are quite dark, so I'm going to put in, I think, I'm going to put green in. It should be dark green, so I'll add a bit of black to my green. That's a very fat one at the end. Well, never mind. Actually, these are dark as well up top, so I'll just put that in. And I'll put the frames on with a pale pink, I think. I'll leave it at that. I'll try putting in a little bit of the rest of the frame. Yep, that's okay. Just cover up the edge of that. It's a bit paler. That works all right though. So in the shop window, I think there's a little bit more in the way of interesting little pale bits. So I'm just going to put in a pale blue, just to suggest something going on. And then there are a few darker areas on that, so I'm going to mix my black with my purple and just put in the guttering, and there's a dark line just along here, so you can go as detailed as you want. I'm not going to go into complete detail. And the windows at the top, I'm going to use a pale purple. There's a little pale line there, and then you've got the window frames, which I'll just put in a pale colour. Actually, I have already done those turquoise a little bit. Like that. And again, up top, we have dark windows as well. Anyway, I'll move on to the next one. And the windows there are quite dark, so I will go in with dark purple. 1, 2, 3. And again at the bottom, they're rectangles. So I'll put the darkest areas in, and then I'll go over with the lighter frames. And up top you've got some very dark windows. I think, am I doing the right building? No, I'm not. I was just about to do the one next door, losing my way. So that's got a dark frame, and then it's a lot lighter in the window, so I might do that pink. Like that. That didn't work too well. My brush is very big for what I'm doing. There's also, if I was going to spend a long time on this, there's also details on the tops of the buildings, these little staggered bits, which I would go into detail with, but not today. So I think pale pink on these. So I've got a fret, the bottom of the window goes straight across, and it needs a shadow under it, and within the window you've got quite a pale frame. Dark purple shadow and there and there, and again you've got an interesting shop front with lots of shapes going on. Pink across there, I think. And within the shop front you've got a pale line, and you've also got a very light area here, which I'm going to put in. I don't know what that is exactly. It's something lit up. So yeah, like that. So these are actually blue there, but I'm going to make them red. So I'm going to go all the way across with that. So they actually stand out because they're a lot higher chroma. So they come forward a bit. More muted red for the side. So I'm going to mix purple with the red. And then the roof is very pale, so I'm going to do pale pink. Like that. And they've got, obviously there's 2 of them. And there's a chimney, which is, I'm going to do dark red. So within the, here you've got a very light area, which is because it's lit up. So I'm going to do it with the pale green That's actually probably too loud, too pale. I'll just correct those a little bit. Well, I might paint over those, we'll see. And there's a shop front behind, and I think I'll do that green. It's relatively mid-tonal. You know what, actually, I think I'll do it blue, because there's no blue in that area much. So I am using high chroma on these objects, and I will also use it on the telephone box to bring them forward. So I'm going to be using blue. Oops, sorry, camera shake. Right, I've lost where I am a little bit. Oh, I see. This shop front goes right over here to the phone box. And it's very pale in there, so I'm going to go in with a pale green. Well, it's not actually that pale, it's a yellow light, so it's not going to become white, which is what I've got. It's probably about that tonal value. It's a bit of a dark area in here that goes down there. Take my blue across there. And also I'm going to go dark blue behind the phone box. So within the phone box it's quite dark, so I'm going to just put in dark purple and also down the front here. And I will paint over that with something very bright, which I think is going to be a pale turquoise. So I'm just mixing my turquoise and get a nice roll on my brush. Go down. I mean, the temptation is to make this red, but because I want to go with colours that aren't being in the photograph, I'm not going to use that. So down this side. And across the top. And it's quite pale on the top, so I'm just going to go with a pale green and use the corner of my brush to put that in. So I'm a bit wonky, so I'll take my dark purple and just improve that. There's also a very pale line here, there. So it's very dark at the bottom because at the moment you can't differentiate it from the pavement. I'll just put a dark blue in there. Like that. And interestingly enough, this comes forward much more than this, whereas I think in the photograph the red comes forward more than the blue. It's because the red's brighter. Do a pale pink line behind there because that's a shop front. Like that. I'm also going to paint over this a little bit. Oh, out of paint. And so moving on, I'm going to paint all of these houses, and I'll speed it because I want to get onto the finer details. So now I'm going to put some details on, and I'm going to use a rigger for the smaller things like details on windows and the lights and all that kind of thing. So I'm going to start on the castle, and I'm going to mix, I think, a pale purple. No, actually, I'm going to mix pink because it contrasts with the blue of the castle. So looking at the windows, they're not very light, so I want a bit of a mid-tone. Put those in. This one's a bit brighter. And then there's a very pale one over here that's yellow. I think I'll go for a pale green with that one. Just that. And then back into my pink for over here. And within these windows here, it's a bit darker with the frame, so I'm going to just use a dark green to get over them a little bit. And then it's a bit darker on this window. It's not really a window actually, it's an architectural feature It looks like it was a window once. And I've got a few dark lines to put on, so that will be in dark green. So going over there like that. So a little rectangle there. And I've got all this little bit along here with the chimneys and those little minarets. And I think I'll do those in a dark green. So a minaret there. Little one there. It's almost like a spire here. It's a dark area here. And over here we've got the tower. With the flag. And then another one. Actually, the top of that one's a little bit lighter, so I might go over that. And then you've got a chimney stack. And more chimneys here. Very wide one there. And a few bits of roof. And then another chimney here. So it's starting to really stand out because of the dark tones that I put along the top there. I'll just go with a pale blue just on here for a little bit of interest. And I've already put in some of the chimneys, but I'm going to go over them because they're a bit lighter. So they're going to be a pale green. Oh, it's too dark. A little bit paler. And I think I've caught the moodiness of the original photo without all the detail. Got very black windows here. A paler one there. There's also well, looks like a chimney here or a shadow, and I'll put that in. Dark shadow down there. And also on here there's a few architectural features in the side. A window there. So I've actually got my windows a little bit wrong there, so I can correct those, and there's a window here as well. So that's lit, not very pale. I might do that pink. And you've got a pale window sort of up here as well. I can see a few little areas up here that are pale, little marks. So I'm going to go in with a bit of the pink. And it's very dark against the sky there. So I'm going to put a few chimneys here. I'm going to use probably, I think, I could use a dark red actually, that would be interesting. And within the windows here, it's a little bit paler than I've got it. So in the frames on the houses, so I'm going to just fill in a little bit. So you can see it's starting to look very three-dimensional, even though the colours are abnormal. It still works because of the tonal values. Just put a little bit of pale green in here. There's a light there actually, so I'm going to go with, I think, a pale, I think I'll go for pink. And it's got quite a mist around it, so I'm using pink for the fading light, the further you get away from the lamp. And then I'm going to put, because it's quite white in the middle, I'm going to put white in there. And just blend it in a little bit so it looks like a light. Likewise, there's another one here. So I'll just put a dot of white there. It needs another dot of white in the middle of here, I think. That's a bit brighter. And I might use a pale blue around this area here. That's not a pale blue. It's gone a bit dark. Let's go over that. And within this window here, there's a much paler area. I'm going to go with the pink in there. A bit more white in that. It's quite light. So to get the lights to shine out, I'm putting in contrast and making the lights very light against dark. And then you've got more lights here. So again, I'm going to go in with my red in the background. It's actually, this is quite similar to what's there, but the lights aren't going to be yellow. They're going to be, I think, pale green. So within that red, I'm going to go with the pink around where the lights will be at the bottom, but they'll be green at the top. Just going to put the lights in. The lights at the bottom aren't so bright, but the lights at the top, as I say, are going to be green. So I'll take some pale green and put in my light circles. And then blend them a little bit. And then put a white dot in the middle. And there you have light. A little bit more on these windows maybe. Like that. And I'm going to put a few bits of markings on the road in a pale green. So there's a few, I don't know if this is going to be light enough. Oh, that's not bad. Actually, it should be a bit paler than that. Put a few details over here. And the markings on the road come around here. I think I've got too much paint on my brush. It's making the lines fat. That's better. Again, second line. Not very good lines. Never mind. And then you've got the white lines that come down. I think they need to be a little bit darker. And again, I'm going to do those in green. A little bit paler over here because there's not the shadow. and down here it's lighter. And then in the middle of the road, they're quite pale, so they kind of zigzag. So I'll start here. And in the area of shadow, they will be darker. So we'll go into here like that. And over the other side. And then pale outside the shadow. And they kind of disappear a little bit over here. I'm not sure what the road markings are, so I'm just going to suggest. There's a few over here as well. And you've got a little bit of a paler area here as well. And there. So I think for a final thing, I think my bit of castle here is too dark, and that will come forward if I make it lighter. So taking my blue, I might do a little bit of texturing as well. I'm going to get a lighter blue and just put it in. That's still a bit dark. That's too light. So now that does come forward a little bit, which is nice. Bit in here. Like that. And a few little details I think over here. So you have a very dark line down the edge of this, and you have a window which is going to be dark green because I happen to have that on my palette. I think that roof is a little bit lighter, so I'll just put in a bit of a paler purple than what I've got, so you can see it a bit more. That actually is too pale. And we need the side of that window to be darker. And there's a few little areas of light. I think that's too light. Take that down a bit. That's the actual roof above the window. A bit up there. You can see a few almost street lights or some kind of post up here. And along here it's a little bit lighter on the chimneys. And so I think I will leave it at that. You can see how it works, and it's a very interesting thing to do. And you never know really how it's going to turn out, but you can see that you still get that three-dimensional dramatic look, even though the colours aren't the correct colours. You could go a lot louder than I've gone. I've gone quite dark. That's because I don't really clean my brush in between dipping into different paints, so some of the black has gone into the colour. If I had more time to do this, I would probably go brighter. and be a bit more careful with the painting. But it's the tonal values that are important, and these buildings come forward, the castle goes back, the castle's nicely silhouetted against the sky, and the sky is a lot brighter. So as I said at the beginning, the color isn't necessarily important in this kind of technique, because it's the tonal values that carry the painting. I hope you enjoyed that, and I will look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye.